Hello and welcome to a rainy day reading of your full moon in Cancer. So we have the full moon in Cancer rounding out the energy of 2020, and it can be kind of emotional because Cancers are emotional. I know, I'm a Cancer sun sign. So if you're feeling the feels, that's normal. We're gonna dive into some cards to figure out what it is you're supposed to do with all of these emotions that are coming up. So this will be a shorter reading for YouTube and an extended reading for my Patreon. So if you're not already a part of my Patreon, patreon.com/Michelle Shea, it is the full-time fortune teller level that gets access to these extended videos. So if you're interested in that, the link will be below, and without further ado, we'll dive into some cards. So we're starting with, as usual, a little total Betty Goddess energy, because we want to know what kind of divine energy is at play in watching over us and helping to assist us in releasing whatever emotions that we're trying to release. So the Total Betty Goddess deck is a deck of my creation. You can find it over at michelleshaywalker.com/shop if you are into 90s nostalgia or just want to know a little bit more about the goddesses or just like oracle decks. 44 cards. We'll figure out which one is our goddess of the moment. So our goddess of the moment is Hathor, played by Brandy Norwood as Moesha. Hathor is very much a Cancerian type energy in that she has everything to do with the home and family. So this is going to be a very home and family based full moon in Cancer. No surprise, since we have been spending a lot of time around the home. There might be some stuff coming up in regards to feelings of wanting to move locations as far as your physical home goes, or it might be more of an emotional connection where there's a lot of emotions coming up around family. So we're gonna dive into what that means. We're gonna do 3 cards from the Fuzzy Prism Oracle to kind of give us a past, present, future of this emotional spread. So I'm getting really more of a calling towards family. If you feel like this advice applies more towards your actual physical home, you can take it there, but I will probably from here on out talk about family of origin. Message for the collective on this full moon in Cancer. We have past of self-care, present of ask, and a future of share. So we are coming from a place where maybe we've had a little bit of distance from our family of origin, or at the very least, we've learned how to ask and take the space that we need for self-care. So that's something that 2020 has brought to us. And then in this moment with this full moon, we're coming into an energy of asking. And I think that this is really coming into an openness to being able to see things from someone else's perspective. So you may have taken your distance because maybe there's some things that you don't agree upon in your family of origin, or it could also be the family in your household. There might be some things that you've had to learn to take self-care, to go inward, to disconnect from their energy. And because you now have that self-care practice in place, we are coming into an energy of starting to come out of that little self-care cave and asking about the other people's experience. Because ultimately, we want to find that balance so that we can find more compassion for those around us. It's not just about being a hermit where you go into the cave and you never interact with people for the rest of your life. It's about ultimately taking all that self-care, coming back into the situation as a more evolved and centered being, and then being able to hold space for the other person's experience. So right now, during this Cancer full moon, you are being called to ask, how you doing? What's going on for you? What is happening in your world and in your mind and your emotions? And trying to come at it from a place of not trying to make their experience be your experience, which is something that I personally struggle with. I am a coach by heart, so I do often find that I'm trying to coach my family members into a different mindset, and sometimes that's not where they're at. That's not what they're asking for. So this is really a card of asking about the other person's experience and letting it just be what it is for them. Recognize that just because they have certain experience of 2020 or of the moment and they're going through certain emotions doesn't mean that that has to be your emotions or your life philosophy, and you also don't have to bring them over to your side. which is really hard to do sometimes, especially if you feel like you're not struggling quite as much or you just want to help. But this is just a holding space for them to share. And that's ultimately where we come into the future card, is sharing. And when you can learn to ask the questions and open up that dialogue for sharing, then it eventually becomes a two-way street. And also, there's an element of this that's taking what you learned from this family of origin experience and sharing it with others, sharing it with the world. So there's important lessons to be had here. And it all comes from making sure that you're centered enough in your own energy that it doesn't affect you how someone else is reacting to a situation. So when that self-care has gotten you to that point, that's when you know you're ready to ask. That's when they have the opportunity to share. They may or may not choose to share, but this is in the future position. So if you keep asking, eventually they will share. There'll be more of an open dialogue, and it will bring a little more peace and harmony back into that experience of home and family, because you recognize that you no longer have to make their experience your own or your experience theirs. So if you want to know more about this, if this topic's resonating for you, I'm going to dive in with a larger spread with the Moon Child Tarot. This feels like a very appropriate deck for the Cancer energy. It feels like it reaches back through generations and through lifetimes. So we're going to dive into a little headier topics over on the Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/Michelle Shea. It's the full-time fortune teller reading that has access to these extended readings on the full and new moon. And if you are on Patreon right now, the rest of this reading continues right now.